Hello, everybody, and welcome to Positive Fandom. Welcome to the Burnettwork, and welcome Julian Mushkin here tonight for All Mankind Season 4, Episode 8 review. Julian, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great, RM. It's great to be here. We're in the middle of our holiday season here. I hope everybody who celebrates Christmas had a good Christmas, and we have our New Year's Eve coming up the end of this weekend, and so cheers to you all.
Absolutely, Julian. I couldn't have said that any better. Cheers to everybody. It is the holiday weekend coming up. It's New Year's coming up in a few days, and we are going to party like it's 1999 or whatever it is. So good to see you, Julian. And hello to Scott Bartholomew, who is here. Says hello. Hello, Scott. Hope you are well. There's a lot to talk about tonight, Scott. So I sure hope you guys and our Plato are ready to chat because Julian, my goodness gracious, Sergey cannot stop thinking about Margot. He's got Margot on the mind.
Yes, he does.
Car. He's in his class teaching high school physics. He's going to the supermarket. He's got a choice to either go left or right. And as soon as he hears Margot's voice on the television and he's with his wife eating the peanut butter ripple ice cream, it doesn't even matter. He's living the good life. He's showing up and just having a good old American life. And he hears Margot's voice as she says, I was not happy with American country and the politics of America. And I just decided that I had to leave and defect to Russia. And it's like everybody knows this is the most rehearsed shit ever, right? But Margot, she's playing the game. Margot learned she's playing the game. But Sergey doesn't care. He has thrown caution to the wind. Sergey is like, I'm going to find her. I've got to find her. It's just like this obsession with Sergey, who, like, you couldn't stop this man. You couldn't stop him with, like, a train. He is going to find Margot. Oh, my goodness. It's like a bomb exploded or something. Julian, what do you make of Sergey's reaction as soon as he heard that? Was it a reaction to Margot or was it a reaction to who Margot was standing next to?
I think it was both, but mostly I think it was who Margot was standing next to. I certainly, the week before, once we knew that Margot was going to be heading to the U.S., I found myself wondering, is Sergey going to seek her out? And he certainly did. And he was like a missile on a mission to find her. And he did find her. I really like that he went to Alita first and said, you're the one who can help me get her. You're the one who can help. And I really like that he explained a little bit more that Alita did not know about the situation between him and Margot and why Margot did what she did. So I don't know how much more that eases tensions between the two of them, but I really did like that he had that information to give to her and that she agreed to help him try and talk to her. What really is concerning is his message, which is you can't go back to the Soviet Union because you might be in danger. So that was concerning.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because I had kind of hypothesized to you, and of course everybody was already thinking this anyway, that once Margot and Alita get together, they can solve any problem in the galaxy. Why not solve the problem of Margot getting out of the Soviet Union? Hell, they could solve and bring that Korean lady to Mars. I'm sure they could, Julian. I'm sure they could find a way. If they could get pregnant Kelly off of Mars and into that other whatever spacecraft she had to go to, certainly they could solve this problem, Julian. And I think, although I'm not sure, but I'd like to think that somebody's going to figure this one out, because apparently being in all these space programs, the challenge isn't just discovery, it's getting people out of some serious shit, Julian. That's what these guys can do. They're like a think tank. It's more than just engineering problems. It's how are we going to fix this huge problem and find a solution. And we see that not just in the situation with Margot, who is in a very bad spot, although we see her sitting in a hotel enjoying her, room service, her hamburger, and appearing to be very happy. I think we all realize that the situation she's in is truly not a good one. She's almost been killed once or twice. It really isn't safe for her to go back. And I was just praying that the Americans would find some technicality as to why Margot can't go back. Or perhaps Alita would find something, do something, and take a chance, with this. Or someone else like Sergei, who I think is scheming a little bit more than what we can see behind the scenes, perhaps all along. What do you think, Julian? Does Sergei have a master plan? And will he be able to initiate it now that Margot's back in town?
I I seriously don't see how Sergey could help her. He was in a bad enough way himself, um, and it was only because Margot insisted that they try and get him out of there that he got out of there. So I don't know what the timing was, but that I can't remember the lady who is her boss, but it's possible that him being taken out, spirited out of the Soviet Union, she saw an opportunity to get back at the U.S. by offering to take Margot as this, oh, you have no choice. She's being I'm going to help you in this situation when it was a tit for tat. She's like, you going to take one of mine? I'm going to take one of yours. But she gets a +1 because she gets to use Margot as soon as she's in a position to be able to use her, to her advantage. She's like, I got this. I got her out of there, and I got her to use now. So everything's good for me. It's aces for her. As soon as she's no longer going to be helping her, she's history.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Darth Plato, for saying Alita solved the Y2K problem. Alita probably can do a lot of things, and she is kind of holding back. All her energy is going towards Helios and solving really space exploration problems and discovery, which are not easy problems to solve. But I think even Alita sees a sense of danger, this dangerous halo, this eerie premonition surrounding Margot, where I really feel like at any minute she could be killed. That's how I really feel the type of danger that Margot is in. And I don't even think Margot herself can find a way out of this. She manages to, at the end of the episode, I guess, maybe it's not the end of the episode, but she manages during the episode to find Sergei, after working out of the formula and getting, these sort of coordinates, these longitude and latitude coordinates to a diner, and she meets him, and she's not happy that he's done this. And certainly I can understand her concern, but gee, Julian, she's got to do something dramatic and drastic. I don't know what could be done that's dramatic and drastic, but gee, Julian, if people are going to steal an asteroid, if we're going to these heights, then certainly Margot can figure out how to stay in the US somehow, Julian. Maybe Margot, as we see her here, may never be seen again, but perhaps somebody else, a new personality, a new identity could be created. Could she become go into witness protection and turn and never be seen again? Could that work?
I suppose it's a possibility. We have to be cognizant of the methods that the KGB likes to employ for certain people. We certainly know that in the real world here, as we've seen many defectors suddenly find themselves being attacked by uh, radiation and all sorts of things secreted into their persons. So I don't know what kind of future it would have to be really good hiding on their part. Yeah, I mean, it's a possibility that once if the plan to steal the asteroid goes off, like Dev and Ed plan, then once it happens, it's possible that the Soviets may say, you know what, we don't have any use for her anymore. Keep her. We don't care. You know, we don't have a use for her. But I I find that kind of hard to believe. Most of the advice she's been giving has been on all levels of how to. And it seems like they have nobody at her level of thinking in the Soviet Union for what they need to do right now. And if they want to maintain their position in the space race, you know, at a level with the U.S., then they need to continue to keep her. I don't see a reason why they wouldn't want to keep her in check with them, because they need her right now. There's nobody to fill her shoes in the Soviet Union, and they would certainly lose ground in the space race if they don't have her.
Yeah, and I think it is interesting. Certainly, we are seeing a lot more progress when it comes to this I want to steal an asteroid project. One of the most interesting parts about it is I had no idea, Julian, that we were going to see a revival of Oliver Twist. You know, certainly we are seeing a little bit of that as Ed recruits his own grandchild to go and steal this component. You know, he's the one who can fit through the tiny little crack of space, and it feels as if almost as if they're hustling him into doing something that's illegal. And Julian, I don't like this part of the story at all. I really dislike this. I had no idea that Ed and Dev were going to go OG gangster on poor Alex. What do you think, Julian? Do you think Alex is going to toughen up and be like, fine, I can go steal stuff. You need me to do this? I'm doing it. How hardcore will Alex go?
That I was really uncomfortable with that too. We know how Kelly would react if she found out what was going on, and the fact that Ed should know better. It's his own freaking, grandson. But no, his once again, Ed's needs are more important than everything else. So he's making bad decisions. Yes, it works. Yes, they manage to do what they, get what they need. But, I think the young man here is only doing it mostly, it's an adventure, but he also, wants to help build. Yeah, he wants to bond with Ed, and maybe even with Dev. Yeah, so he doesn't realize how dangerous or how wrong it is for what he's doing. So yeah, I think this is not a good thing at all.
Well, how long will it be before they have little Alex removing parts of machinery? You know, I really don't like this, and I think that it not only does it set a bad example for Alex, but I think they're putting him in unnecessary danger when he's the most vulnerable person on Happy Valley. But it also tells me that Dev and Ed will manipulate anyone they can if given the opportunity, and that's what really scares me. I think that if push comes to shove and it's their neck on the line versus someone else's, that they'll throw anybody else under the bus. What do you think, Julian?
Yeah, I have that feeling too. I really do. I think we've already seen how Dev can get when his plans are thwarted. He's not a nice guy when his plans get thwarted, and now Ed, who is feeling like, I've got nothing else to lose because I want to stay here, is that he would he would do that too
Yeah,
without thinking about it.
certainly we are seeing that. And this really was maybe one of the most unethical things I've ever seen in my entire life. And, as I said, it's a real Oliver Twist intergalactic moment. This is truly, history in the making. And hello to everybody out there. Hello to Tom Jr. Jackson, moderator, collaborator, and good friend. We are all good people. Tom Jr. Jackson, so great to see you here tonight as well. And also hello to Darth Plato. Scott Bartholomew. Good to see you, Scott. Gary Bando Sandwich Worthington as well. And John Cipolla, who talks about this. Hey guys, love this episode. So good to see all of you. Great to see this. And John says, I didn't like him sending his grandson on a mission. John, I think you and I both know that this was his training. Alex will be hardcore after the 3 days that these guys are going to put him through. Kelly won't recognize her son after his stay in Happy Valley. I think Happy Valley is going to be the new grounds for, kind of like this gang mentality of I can do whatever I want, whenever I want, and I don't care what happens. We've already seen it in the strike. Unfortunately, people ended up dying, and that wasn't even, let's say, necessarily the fault of the strikers, but of engineers not even listening to themselves. And I'm wondering how far this is going to go, Julian. Sam is on that ship right now. They got this special part thanks to Alex, and she has to switch it out. Of course, that's where the episode ends. But Julian, how far is Sam going to go? It's something to think about, and something that even she is uncomfortable in. What an odd situation for so many people to be doing things that they're so uncomfortable doing, Julian. I don't think I've ever seen such an odd situation. And ironically, Danielle Poole is there talking about let's extend the olive branch out. Let's go ahead and show how cooperative we are. I almost feel like somebody planted a bomb in the station and it's going to blow. I mean, I know, let's say as a metaphor, something's going to give. We already saw a literal explosion happen on the ground. Are we going to see something like that in the air when they manipulate the ship, Julian?
Oh, I think that's when we're going to see either the CIA or KGB or both agents that are up there come into play. As soon as they see something is not working right, of course they're going to have to be careful what they do. I mean, you can do the wrong thing, and you could be, dooming a whole crew and a ship to disaster. So, how far are they going to be willing to go? And if indeed, we're kind of looking at a group that feels that it's time to declare their independence from the earth and start fresh. And I don't know how easy that's going to be for them. I mean, they're still receiving lots of stuff from Earth for supplies and such, so I don't know how realistic it is for them to be able to do that right now. And maybe Dev thinks that they'll have a bargaining chip with that asteroid in their orbit, locked in, making it harder for, even harder to get at it, so to speak. It's like, if you want the stuff that's in it, you're going to have to deal with us.
And I think Gary Banner Sanders Worthington says that kid deserves a joint. But honestly, Gary, I think you and I both know that Alex will never get his rightfully due cut for whatever hardcore work he does for this gang. This is really blood is thicker than water. And, he also has an additional, ties to this organization. The dev, I don't even know what you would call them, but the dangerous devs, if you will. And they did shut down the bar, as Darth Plato mentions, but we knew that was going to happen. And certainly Miles, it doesn't even react to it, because Miles can still operate whether the bar is shut down or not. What I do think is interesting is the restricted access that's on Happy Valley right now. It should be called Happy Restricted Valley because that's what the place is going to be like. You can't even go from point A to point B anymore. And Scott Bartholomew says that Alice is going to have to force to choose between Ed and Deb. I think that's interesting. Certainly something to think about. And says stealing the redundant equipment from the Phoenix for OpsCom 2 is going to be a disaster when it's needed down the road. Oh, Gary Bando Sandwich says it's going to cost billions. I like that. Where Helios goes completely bankrupt. Ooh, I like that. Julian, what do you think?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, technically, Dev is Helios right now, so if he's in control of that asteroid, yeah. If something goes wrong and they lose the asteroid, and Phoenix, then yeah, maybe. But I don't think that's going to happen.
I think they are gonna. I actually wrote down the scenarios, and I'm so glad you mentioned this, Julian, because we have to think about what the scenarios are. And of course, someone's written a very long paper about this, some kind of scenario paper, some theoretical model paper about what is actually going to happen. And what do I have down on my paper? This is what I have. Will I be able to find it? The possibilities are, what are the possibilities? I don't have it here. Well, I guess the first possibility is that the asteroid will hover around Mars, let's say, in orbit. Second possibility is that it'll slingshot around Mars, which is what NASA wants, so it can slingshot and I guess go back to the moon or Earth. And the third possibility, it doesn't do either of those two things. It might even fall into Mars's atmosphere and cause a big disaster on Mars.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. It could be drawn into Mars's gravity well and fall and cause a huge issue. But the other one, if they miss capturing it and it slingshots around, then the possibility, the variable is it does go to Earth, and it does exactly what they needed, or they miss it and it heads into Earth or on a trajectory to hit the Earth or to hit the moon,
like
or
The Expanse.
Yes, or it misses everything and nobody gets it. That's where that's where a lot of money gets lost. They've put so much into catching it, and now it's like, nope, nobody gets it.
But would they write that in? Would they write that? Would they?
Yeah, I don't think so. Not the way everything's going.
Scott
Not
says,
the way that we.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I just not the way that the previous seasons have gone. I don't see that happening.
Scott Bartholomew says, I absolutely love that sweeping shot from Happy Valley to the close-up of the Kovalev crater. I love it too, but Scott, what's underneath that methane gas? What looks like methane gas or whatever? Kelly looks all happy, but I think we all know that something is very wrong. I don't think she's going to find life under there, Julian. I don't know what she's going to find under there. You remember what happened a few times when they were drilling and they focus on it. It is kind of very tricky and very risky. Jim Sable, hi Jim, says it will be messed up and headed to slam into Mars or Earth. Yeah, that's interesting. We already know that there's going to be some people who are unfortunately going to end up destroying themselves. Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe they will end up destroying themselves in a way that we haven't anticipated. And I do have to admit that Dev smiling all the time and kind of, smirking, looking like the cat who stole the canary. I'm not enjoying his drive and presence in Happy Valley anymore. I'm almost looking at him as if he might be the person with bad intentions. I don't think he has any good intentions for anybody. And maybe that's not true, but what do you think, Julian?
Dev is thinking about Dev. Once again, it's his plan. It's his that his goal is to do what is good for Dev. So, you know, that's all that's important to Dev is that what I want needs to happen. And that has been his character the whole way through this series, and I don't see that changing at all right now. So, yeah, Dev gonna do what Dev gonna do.
Yes, Dev is going to do what Dev is going to do. And I don't really even think that Dev um, has a legitimate plan. Like he thought of this. It was just convenient that he thinks he can kind of hijack what he wants to do. But we all know that whatever he's thinking, he hasn't thought out well enough. And I think that that's true in the case we saw when he was commanding, or let's say co-commanding along with Ed, the race to Mars, where he almost doubted himself rather than just saying we're not going to pursue and save anybody. He pretended like he was giving it a vote to everybody, knowing very well that's not what he wanted. He wanted everyone to say no, we're not doing it.
Yep, and
And
they knew it.
yeah, and so I don't think um thank you, Gary. He needs a cat to stroke. Yes, he does. That is something to think about. But like I said, I was inspired by Dev at certain moments where he felt he could support Kelly and Alita and have them join this bandwagon. But I have a feeling that Kelly and Alita are going to regret going along with Dev, and it's not going to be what they bargained for. In fact, they're going to be embarrassed by what is going to happen going forward. Certainly, we all know Kelly is not going to be happy when she finds out that Alex has gone rogue and has been turned into little gangster, Lil gangster, little G, in this gang that Dev is really just um harassing people into doing. Even when he brought the four strike leaders into the room to talk about what he wanted to do, even that was very sneaky and coercive, and it was done in private away from all the other people. So, I really am worried for Kelly, especially because Kelly's going into this kind of blind. She almost has stars in her eyes. Gee, Julian, if something happens to Kelly, when we heard poor little Alex say, Mommy, Mommy, you're coming back, right, Mommy? She goes, Of course, Alex. Of course, I'm coming back. Don't worry, I'm coming back. Is she coming back, Julian?
I sure hope so. I was really gratified and happy to see that she wasn't out there all by herself, which, given how some of the earlier episodes had gone, I wouldn't have been surprised if they had, and I was like, oh, thank God she's out there with a freaking team, So at least they're taking that seriously. I would hate for something to happen to her, but I don't know. Maybe that could be the kind of thing that would really show Ed that he's going to have to pay for his decisions. Is he willing to take the price? If something he did ends up resulting in something that happens to Kelly, maybe it falls into that area where she's at. Who knows?
Excuse me. And that is very important. I do also want to mention John Cipolla. Thank you for supporting my comments about the orphans and the Oliver. Yes, this is exactly an intergalactic Oliver twist all the way. Scott says, love the reaction of Margot eating that hamburger after years of exile. Yeah, it did look like it felt good. You just know that cold beer and that hamburger. Well, she probably doesn't drink beer, but that first beer going down, you know how good that first beer feels. Well, that's how she felt there. And John says Dev is building a relationship with Ed and grandson on a personal level. Darth says the show is turning into Moonraker. I wish. Space Kid Gone Wild. Yeah, that's what scares me, Gary. And I did want to mention something about this. Scott mentions that the story Ed was reading to Alex was called The Sand Pebbles. Now, I've seen this movie, and am I correct? He plays a sailor. Steve McQueen plays a sailor.
Yeah,
And one of the stories, first of all, it's like a 3-hour movie. It's a long film.
yeah, it's a long movie.
And they're in, I don't know whether they're in Indochina. I could be
China.
wrong.
Yeah,
So they're over there somewhere, and it's like the 1930s. And there was one particular part of the story that I liked a lot, where this guy is trying to win the freedom of this girl who's in prostitution. Is that the same film, Julian?
sounds familiar. It's been a long time since I've
He
seen the
plays
whole movie.
he Scott, let me know if it is. He plays poker, and the house doesn't expect him to win, but he does. And when this guy wins, like all the sailors have to fight to get out of there and to get this woman out of the brothel, because there was no way that they were expecting him, even if he won, to leave with this girl. So it was the most bizarre and most I don't know whether it is the same movie, but I'm just trying to figure out how the Sand Pebbles fits into this story. Is there something about this particular season that fits the Sand Pebbles story? I remember there was a lot of battles in it, and the men didn't know what they were fighting for. There was a lot of that going on. Something to think about. Um, John says he doesn't want Ed to corrupt the grandson. I think it's happened, John. I think he's there. And guys, oh, thank you. Tom Jr. Jackson says, guys, subscribe to my new channel, Roman Empire Matters. This is the link here in the channel. Thank you, Tom. I really appreciate that. You are so kind, Tom Jr. Jackson. Okay. Okay, so someone says, yes, it's one of the sailors. He remembers that. And Richard Attenborough is in the same. Yes, yes. But I was just curious as to whether that theme was something that was going to convey over to this story, Julian. Is it an Easter egg, or is it just a lesson?
I was wondering that myself when I saw that I saw the bit of the title as he moved the book, and I was like, "Is that the Sand Pebbles?" And he started, because I've never read the book, and I'm interested in reading it now. And I found myself thinking about that same thing, because a lot of this stuff, a lot of this stuff is not just chance. The writers of the show were doing that on purpose. And of course, at least in the movie, I don't know about the book. I have a feeling it might be the same thing. Is that Steve McQueen's character does not make it out alive in that movie, and actually, I think part of it is that he gives himself over to doing the duty, doing it for something bigger than himself, which I think most of his most of his time had been just looking out for number one, looking out for him. And so that's part of his character's arc and growth through the story. You mentioned, yes, it is. It's pre-World War II, and it's kind of illustrating what was called gunboat diplomacy in China in that period, where we sent these armed gunboats to patrol the river areas because there was the civil wars going on between a lot of the warlords in China at this time, and it was causing a disruption of trade and all sorts of stuff going on over there. So that was part of our extended trying to create peace in a situation that we really didn't know what the heck we were was going on in there. So we were kind of out of our depth trying to figure out how to help what was going on there. And maybe that's kind of what's going on in this situation on Mars is, lots of different groups trying to do what they think is best and don't really know what the full situation is going into the situation. So
Yeah, and they're calling it an Ocean's 11 in space.
Yeah, nice.
Which is what a lot of people are calling it. because of what they're trying to do. Of course, in Ocean's 11, the jewels are already owned by somebody. In this particular case, it's free. It can go to anyone. I think this is more like, what's that movie where it might have starred Burt Reynolds and Sally Field, and they're doing this race. What was that called? It was called God, I can't remember. But I feel like that's what this might be like, where they're all racing to get to the finish line. But this is more of a espionage style story because they're working in the same space. It might be kind of like if you were actually doing this, it would be one of those online, games where somebody, a strategic game, and you're fighting against everybody in there. But in this particular case, there's a secret heist, I guess, if you will, but no one owns the property yet. In Ocean's 11, it was someone's property, like somebody owned that. So what's the circumstance when everybody has fair game at it? And I think that's when, in the beginning of the story, when Dev says, I want everyone to be able to go to Mars, he didn't actually mean everyone. He's essentially saying he wants to be able to go there and do whatever he wants to. They were accused of, or maybe it wasn't them, but I think it was them, accused of having a monopoly, right? At one time on the moon, Julian? Helios?
Yeah, that sounds kind of right. Yeah, I think Helios is the only. They were forced to give up their monopoly on the moon, I think, is part of the story of the backstory of the in between the seasons type of thing. Was that Helios had to kind of give up their monopoly on controlling, what everybody was doing.
Exxon and Halliburton complained that they didn't have access. And hello to Fred Leggett. Hello, Fred. Says the movie was directed by Robert Wise. Thank you so much. And Darth Vader talks about warlordism as being a problem in those years. Gary says everything's connected in the show. Some of you guys think that Ed is going to go out in a blaze of glory. And I know Jim said that. I think Ed is going to go out in a blaze of glory. That's something to think about. I think maybe we might also see Ocean's 199, Smokey and the Bandit. Wow, Cannonball Run. That's it. Cannonball Run. This feels like Cannonball Run, where it's like a free for all almost. I know it's not as loose and carefree and jokey, but the let's say the lack of care that Dev and Ed are putting into this plan, which I feel is absolutely foolish and dangerous, feels like a Cannonball Run version of a legitimate plan that they're trying to use to slingshot the asteroid. So it's going to backfire. We all know it's going to backfire. There's no one here who believes it's not going to backfire, right? Right?
Something's going to go wrong. Definitely.
More like hijacking. Okay. Cannonball Run. But in order to hijack, someone has to already own it. So it's like in Cannonball Run, anybody could win, right? Was I wrong on that?
Well, yeah, I would. The Cannonball Run analogy seems closer to when they were racing to Mars.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually, because you had three different concerns all trying to get there, So it was like, who's going to get there first? So that's more like the race that we're talking about. This is a heist that we're looking at, and it's they're going to heist something under the eyes of, under the noses of the powers that be that think that they're in control of what's going to happen with the asteroid. That's what's interesting about it. It's almost like a Mission Impossible type of a thing, where they're going to swap out the discriminators so they get a different message. It's kind of like it's like Die Hard 2. It's like Die Hard 2 when they took over control. They made their own control room set up and guided the planes in. It was like, That's exactly what's going on. This is Die Hard 2.
I love it. I love it. I love that. That's if we had to explain this to somebody, that sounds like a great example. And certainly Die Hard 2 was about airplanes and spacecraft, I guess more or less, not
And
spacecraft, but
stealing the
aircraft.
control. Yeah.
Yes. And John that's a very I really like that, Julian. John says, I'm not sure if this has been covered, but do you get the impression that Dev is a version of Elon Musk? I think Elon Musk would never harm anyone. Um, that's just me. What do you think, Julian?
Intentionally, maybe not, but yeah, Dev is a version of Elon Musk, certainly. And if anybody's been paying attention to Elon, then they know that Elon does things for Elon because Elon needs to do the things that he needs to do, and he is not. If anybody says anything negative about him, he is very quick to attack those people. Remember when the Philippine kids were stuck in that cave, and they were running. The water was filling up because of the storms and everything. And he offered to help, but his help was not what they needed. What he was trying to get used in there, and a person who knew on the scene, who knew exactly what needed to be done, said, "We don't need your help." And Elon decided that this guy needed to be accused of being a pedophile. And
Not helpful.
started, yeah. So it wasn't his finest among many. So
Yeah, you're right about that, Julian. And Fred says, I thought for sure the plot was going to have Goldilocks slam into the earth due to miscalculations and accidents, which happened. It was not an accident in The Expanse. It was on purpose. Someone, Marco Uranos sent asteroids to slam into the earth in The Expanse. I don't know whether they want to repeat that. Um, so I'm going to say no to the Earth slamming and yes to the Mars slamming because it's going to come close to Mars. We already know that, right? So it's going to come close to Mars's orbit, and they're going to try and direct it either into Mars's orbit or slingshot it, and it's just going to slam into Mars, right into Kelly's crater. That's what I'm going to call it. Kelly's crater is going to get slammed. Um, I don't know. I hope not. I hope Kelly will be safe. Jim says yes, they sued Halliburton. They got sued by Halliburton, Shell, and Exxon. That's right. Hey, Vasek, how are ya? Hope you are well, like the space shoot. Scott says Sergey telling Margot that defectors are glorified prisoners, a bird in a cage, got me thinking about Snowden and his situation. Yeah, and I think it was Alita, but I could be wrong. I think it is very interesting because Snowden is quite a very interesting person when he talks about his experiences, and his life has not been easy. Like he definitely chose the path less traveled, and I don't even know how he survives, but it's so hard for him to function, and yet he does. Like Snowden still, if you saw him 10 years ago, he's the same person, Julian. Even after all the pressure of everything that's gone on, you know? Um, Darth Plato says Ed is Captain Chaos. Huh. Interesting. Something to think about. I think that Ed in combination with Dev is a disaster in the making. So that's how I would do it. And oh, thank you. Tom says you can purchase the Sand Pebbles book on Amazon. Okay. Jim says it's the race for the roid.
I like it.
Thank you, Jim. That's excellent. I'm going to give you a golden sticker for that. And oh, Darth Plato says the asteroid is jointly owned. You know something? Nobody owns that asteroid yet. I'm sorry, Darth Plato, but until it's in your possession, I don't think anybody can own something that's just freely floating in space. You've got to actually get it in your possession. At this point, anyone can get it in their possession, right? Right, Julian?
I would think so. I mean, they might. So, who's going to say who owns it? You know,
Mhm.
it's like that's ridiculous.
I mean, what if it's another? We already saw North Korea kick it
Yeah,
out of the ballpark by getting on Mars first. What if they freaking got to it first? And what if it's that man's wife who's on the freaking ship? I'm sorry, I just got excited. I got a little excited. I'm so sorry.
yeah.
I'm so sorry, guys.
Nobody's landed on that asteroid yet. All they did was sight it and see where it was going to go. So for anybody to claim it is ridiculous.
But wouldn't it feel good if it was that Korean lady? And I'm sorry. I can't help myself. I'm so sorry, guys. It's obsessive with me. Gary has said such a good comment. This is space chess. Thank you, Gary. It is. It's complicated. It's not a simple situation. What I'm mostly concerned about is sort of the domino effect of all the events, the chain of events, and how it's going to affect each individual, because I have a feeling it's going to be a deleterious effect. I don't think anybody's going to come out of this looking good or being happy, or maybe even being safe, maybe not just on Mars, but maybe also on Earth. I mean, we had a season that ended where someone unfortunately made an attack, a domestic terrorist attack against one of these groups. I certainly don't want to see that again, but the tensions are still kind of high. And Julian, if what Sergey is saying is true, Sergey thinks that Margot will be killed. Is Margot convinced? Does Margot believe Sergey, Julian?
I think she does. After what she experienced, I think she does. She's willing to. After what she saw, what happened to him, where he was almost killed right in front of her.
Yeah, that is something else to think about too.
I
Fred
think she has no illusions.
Fred says there's an assumption that all efforts are being spent to get Goldilocks into Earth orbit. A little different. Yes, something to think about, Fred. They wanted to slingshot around, so that can happen, and that is something to think about. So okay, a thing is owned by whomever has the power to buy. Um, yeah, but that's a theory, Darth Plato. We're not dealing in theories with this particular item. We're saying what is actually going to happen. Whoever gets to it first will be the owner of that asteroid, right, Julian?
Yeah. And right now, the plan is for both the Soviets and the U.S. to be owners on it. That's
Right.
the plan.
But if the Soviets and the US don't get to it and it's somebody else, they will be the owners of it. So anyone can own it at this time. Um, it could be any one of us who could get to that roid. As as Jim says, the race for the roid. I couldn't have said it any better. So this is very interesting. All efforts by everyone, that is not just a few parties. Yeah. Yeah. I think maybe whoever gets it, it will be an accident. It's not going to be a combination of your greatest effort. It'll be the lucky one who might get it. So yeah. And John says money does strange things to your mind. Um I think that Dev had some other issues, personal family issues. And his parents are exceptional people. His father was an exceptional person who unfortunately had this tragedy that caused him to lose everything. His mother is still helping people on Earth. But the fact that Dev, and we talked about this, shows up in what looks like a Lamborghini or a Ferrari or whatever the hell it is at a community center, tells you something about Dev. Dev flaunts his power and is proud of the fact that he has this power. And without it, I don't think Dev is a whole person. What do you think, Julian?
Yeah, I mean, his drive to achieve the things is part of his needing to fill that that hole, because he is not whole. So yeah, I think that's kind of a typical. He's succeeded in so many things, and yet he's driven to continue doing this other stuff because he hasn't he knows that there's an emptiness inside him, or maybe he doesn't even realize it, but it is making it difficult for him to be a complete person and feel at ease. So he's driven to do these things that he's doing, and he's just decided that I'm better than most of the other players in the game. So screw y'all. I'm just going to do what I'm going to do because I can.
Yeah, and Scott believes that Ed will shave to make progress with his grandson. He had a friend growing up who never resolved things with his father until he's cut his hair a little different, but the same. And even I admit I do like to see Ed a little less. Maybe he needs to think about his appearance. Maybe that's something he hasn't even been thinking about over the past 10 or 15 years. Although I'm not sure. Fred says that he thinks something's going to go sideways no matter who wins. That's interesting. Something to think about. And once again, the Vasic, many of us believe this, that they will both lose the asteroid. That is really unfortunate, especially since Alita is looking at the asteroid as something that could change. Alita and Danielle Poole are looking at how this could change the world, how it's going to be this incredible event. And we all want that to happen. When you think about it, um, isn't it something to think about? The idea that it will have this incredible.
I don't,
Yeah. And John
but
takes
I
it
don't,
a little
I
further,
don't
says,
think it would.
okay.
Yeah, well,
I
it's
I
just
don't
that we yeah we've seen, they thought, energy, if we had a cheaper energy or more accessible energy, that would be a boon to mankind. We still kind of believe that. It's like, oh, if we can crack the fusion, power type of thing, and get a fusion power plant running safely, that would be indefinite power. But Dev's company things better on Earth. We've seen that there's still economic, issues. There's still people who aren't living very well, and are not, sharing, not partaking in that great thing. And so, for them to say, "Oh, this asteroid has this," I can't even remember what it is that's in there that they're planning to get.
iridium,
Yeah,
I think.
still, it's like, why do they think that that's going to suddenly make things better for everybody on Earth? They've just said that it is. Nobody's explaining why it would. I'm, I'm like, and since we've already seen something happen that was supposedly going to be to the benefit of mankind, and it didn't turn out to be to the benefit of mankind, we still have the social stratification. It's just like, no, I don't think that what they may think it's going to be for the betterment of mankind, but I don't think it is. I think it's more of the same. It's like when we're talking about money doing things to people's thinking. It's that greed. They think, oh, this will make things better, because they're still thinking in that old mind frame of economic mind frame, and it's not. I don't think getting it is going to make things better. But that is the story. That's what's playing out. I just don't think that it's going to make this incredible, economic difference in the world.
Absolutely. And Gary says the asteroid will have an Indian call center on it. When they spin it around, they pop up everywhere. God damn it. I'm okay with that. Like, I like customer service. I like the thought that if I'm out in the galaxy, someone will answer. I'm totally fine with that. Like, I'm cool with that. And why not have a Netflix antenna broadcast from there? Let us have at least Netflix while we're out there. Yeah, Fred, you were right that nobody batted an eye at that community center, because they know who he is. And maybe he's gone there before, right? Doing that. Something to think about. Um, let's see what else. John says this is quite, it's like a dog looking in a reflection when holding a bone, seeing the reflection, then wanting the bone in the reflection and losing it. Yeah, that is a very interesting comment. and maybe a sign that it means that no one will get it. It's something that will always be out of reach, but you can see it, right? Um, okay, so now another thing that I noticed about this episode, Julian, is that
Mhm.
Alita does also play a role in this. Alita kind of is still upset with Margot, but she does this favor for someone who's so upset with Margot. Why would she go out of her way to help, even after this explanation, Julian? Because honestly, I don't know whether Alita's ever going to warm up to Margot entirely. Even when she went over to hand her the files, she wasn't like chummy. She still had an attitude. Is Alita any closer to actually making amends with what Margot has done?
I think the fact that she took the file to her in the first place with that note is a message that she is. I think Sergei's story to her, filling in some of those missing pieces that she didn't know, made a bit of a difference. It didn't make a huge, it didn't suddenly, it wasn't a big kumbaya moment, but it, and I think it helped show that Alita is starting to, warm a little bit back to that person who she kind of viewed as a bit of a second mom, and who she really owes an awful lot of her, position to. So
This might be my favorite comment. Fred says Alita really owes Margot like everything, and John follows it with strange suspicion Alita defects to be with Margot.
ah,
Oh my gosh, I'm loving all of this. And if that happened, I suspect that if Alita did defect to be with Margot, that between the two of them, they would end up taking over the organization. This is how I see them. I see them as unstoppable leaders who can lead anything. After all, it looks like Alita is kind of running Helios. She is, right, Julian?
yeah, kind of. With, they were, he kind of put her in charge of a lot of the stuff regarding the negotiations and everything. Everybody was coming to her, asking her, you know, decisions to be made and all that kind of stuff. With him, heading to Mars at the time, yeah, she's kind of in charge.
Well, there's a lot to think about in this episode, and I think poor Sam, who's on that ship right now, who sees how on the spotlight she is there, and that other guy whose name I can't remember just now, was sent with Danielle up to on the ship.
Palmer.
So Palmer is watching her like a hawk, and I don't think Palmer is going to fall for anything this time. I'm really concerned if worst case scenario is that she doesn't switch out the thing, right? That's a worst case scenario. Because
Oh
remember,
yeah.
it'll only work if everything works on Happy Valley. Happy Valley has to send the message. If Happy Valley doesn't send that message anyway, it wouldn't work. There's a lot at stake, but I think there's too many things going that can go wrong with their story, and maybe it'll send a message that we can't anticipate. Um, Maybe the ship itself will go so far out and then have an issue. Who knows? Um, there's so much speculation about this. We only have 2 more episodes, Julian. How are they going to wrap all this up?
Oh, it's going to leave us with a cliffhanger, a cliffhanger.
Fred says Helios being in bed with NASA is so prescient. Prescient? Prescient? Okay.
Prescient. Yes.
Prescient. Okay.
Yes.
Well, I have to say tonight's discussion about this show, I also suspect that what Sergey will be even more involved than we see. I think Sergey is OG. And we don't know that. We don't know everything about him. If he can handle the KGB, he can certainly handle, people here in America. I think if he has to pull strings or get support, he could do it. and they could somehow get Margot here. But Margot's this huge public figure now. It's not like before, everybody on Earth and in the galaxy seems to know who Margot is. So the fact that people know that she's alive now is going to make it harder for her to stay in the US, or maybe not. But yeah. John says Sergey will have to help Margot get away. He owes Margot, doesn't he?
Well, yes, he does. But here's the big question. We already know that Margot has watchers on her. There was a Marine watcher while she was, and then her hand, her little KGB watcher, always, outside the doorway. How the hell did she manage to get out of the hotel and to the restaurant to meet him? I, I'm like, how did that happen? I don't. We didn't even see it happen. So we have to wonder, did it actually happen? Does she just think that she lost her hand, watcher? I bet there's watchers on the watchers. And so there's probably, now that Sergey's, shown himself to her, they're like, oh, we know where to find you now. They're going to look at his car and they're going to see the and they're going to take him. I mean, he didn't get out of Russia without he had help, and he didn't handle the KGB. He got handled. He was almost killed. So I don't have any hopes of him being able to help her very well.
Exactly. And the Basco scenario, hi, says, I'm all caught up on the show. I was wondering that as well. Basco scenario, something to think about, something we're all thinking about. They certainly have made us wonder what's going to happen. John says she had to take a piss and escape from the bathroom. Yeah, maybe. I'd like to think that she seduced both men. I think Margot knows what she's doing with guards. By this point of her life, she's been around the block a few times, guys, and she can charm the pants off of any engineer or soldier or KGB operative. Margot can do it. All she needs is a piano and a microphone, guys, and Margot has them eating out of her hands.
And a calculator. She needs a calculator too.
And a calculator. And it's the
slide rule. She got to have a slide rule.
Scott says, I want to know how she got that perpetual limp. I don't know.
Don't see her do an awful lot of exercise.
Yeah, I also want to know how old Margot is. So that's something to think about. But Julian, I've had such a fun time discussing this episode with you because of the odd nature of it, the odd placement of it. Darth Plato says he thinks it's from the explosion. I thought she avoided it. She left right before the explosion.
That's what she said.
So I have no idea. I thought she avoided it, but oh, is she in her 60s? Thank you, Bosco. He says that she's in her 60s because she was doing space work in the 60s and she was in her 20s or 18.
She's probably about the same age as Ed.
Yeah. So that's something to think about. But this episode has been very, very interesting foray. As I said, Happy Valley was going to turn gangster. We knew that. We knew this was going to happen, as we had said. Scott Bartholomew says Margot is hot. She's a good-looking woman. There's no doubt about it. Fred says, I think it's odd that Margot worked hand in hand with Von Braun. Yeah, and she kind of grew up with him. Yeah, that's something to think about. Let's see. I wonder what this means. Amazing how all the astronauts I liked in the early part of. Oh yeah, well, that happens sometimes, John. But it's okay. I think the series has outdone itself time and time again. Even when it does become unbelievable, it's still enjoyable, and I think that's okay. I think sometimes when there are unbelievable things in a show, as long as it's entertaining and you're enjoying it, um, it doesn't matter. Julian, what's gonna happen in the next episode? Will Margot get away? Um, is Kelly coming back? Are they gonna get this asteroid? And what will happen to poor Danielle Poole, who seems to do everything ethically, but I feel like she might get the short end of the stick on this one.
I think I think they're gonna I think they're gonna nab that asteroid. I think they are. I think they're gonna grab it and they're gonna declare their independence. And I think Kelly's gonna get back and she's gonna be really mad at Ed.
And then Alex is gonna be like, "What you talking about, Mom?" And she's like, "What have you done to her?" He's like, "I don't know. What's wrong with you, chick?" Or whatever he'll say, like however he'll speak to his mother. He'll be all OG by the time Kelly comes back. She won't even recognize her boy. Jermaine says, "Crap, I'm late. Has anyone said that Dev and Ed are the worst babysitters in the universe?" Yes, they're the worst babysitters ever. Oh my gosh, they're awful. And yes, Kelly will be so pissed. And old Ed bakes space brownies and spikes Daniel. You know something? It's gonna be bad, Gary, but it's gonna be so good because we're all gonna be watching this. Basco Scenario says Kelly's going to be. You used Alex to do what now? I gave you I gave your family, but she had family rules in the paper. Remember, Julian?
Yeah.
Okay, Darth Plato makes a good point at this, and you mentioned this, Julian. Irenia can't afford a loss on this. Will Irenia go hardcore? Will we see hardcore Irenia this time? What do you think, Julian?
We already know that she's part of the KGB. Of course she will. She'll be the first one to employ the assets that they have, and that's probably where things will go wrong. So,
and I also think I'm gonna get a little bold here. If Margot ends up back in Russia, I don't think she's gonna go out quietly. I think Margot's gonna be like, I got nothing to lose. I don't think Margot's gonna put up with being pinned down, knowing now that Irenia has been lying to her all this time. It's been the cause of her problems, the cause of ruining her life. I think Margot might, if she ends up back there, I think she might take out Irenia. That's what I think.
I don't see her playing that way. But I don't, other than what she has to offer as far as the space program stuff, she doesn't have an awful lot to offer. So if everything goes to you on this mission, she's still going to have nothing to offer to Irina. So what cards does she have? She doesn't have any cards. The only cards is she could. I don't see it. If they lose control of the asteroid, she doesn't have any cards. And even if they do gain one, even if the mission was to go right and they get the asteroid back to Earth and into a stable orbit around Earth, she's still got nothing left after that. What do they need her for?
What if Margot messes up on purpose, Julian?
She's too much about doing that. She is the one who is for all mankind. That has always been her dream, to be involved with the space, and getting the human race out into space. And it's all she's ever wanted. And we saw that when she went up to, Star City without being asked. She's like, I want to be in on the game. It's all she had that she could try and do. And so that's all she wants. That's what she wants. She wants to be involved. No matter who she's working for, she wants to be involved. Who knows? Maybe she'll end up working for Helios.
How about that? Scott Bartholomew says there will be a massive accident due to competing game plans for the asteroid Irwin Allen level disaster. Dark Player says shit's gonna go down. Basco says Margot will not go back. Alida will help her in the end. Fred says, I don't know. Arena knows the security state too well and is too entrenched. Jermaine says Margot's choices are work for the abusive KGB or defect back to the USA, a country that hates her. Scott says Alida will compromise her beliefs before Margot. And yes, you guys can see her working with Alida. I still think they've been planning the busting out of Margot all along. I think when Alida runs into the NASA guy's office and says, "You can't let her come here," like, I think it's all an act. I think she's going to go ahead and support Margot. This has been the plan all along, and Alida has been playing this role so well. She's been playing it like a gangster, guys, like an OG. And I think that at the end, we're going to see a classic Dev versus Ed, hand and fist, knife fight, and they just roll off into the edge of Mars with no suits on and crazy shit like that. It's going to be crazy. And maybe, just maybe the techie people from Helios will actually get the asteroid and not Dev and not Ed. Maybe it'll be Sam and Milosh and that crew who will have control after all, Julian.
Maybe it'll be Danielle. She'll decide to be part of the. No, I don't think so. She's got family back on the.
Well, I don't know whether this is right, but they've asked for my help, and I will help them. And they were like, Danielle, you've always been kind to us. I really am enjoying this, and we're about to close up the show, guys. But I love your comments. Okay. The show showed Arena as the new gov in Russia for no reason. She's not a minor player. Good point, Darth Plato. Fred says Margot's bit play in America is a mega crisis that gets solved by her team, which includes Alida, that would get her back to America. Yeah, absolutely. Margot opens a chain of Astro Burgers. Why not, Gary? It makes total sense. You could just see her holding on to that burger right now. Yes, I hope he can help himself. I hope that poor man can help himself and won't tell us too much more. Scott says that Alita's been weakened. And John says everybody wants their piece of the pie in this show. Will everyone get that piece of the pie? I think it's going to play out the way I said. We're going to see a classic, Captain Kirk versus enemy fight on the surface of Mars with no suits, with knives between Dev and Ed. Yes. That kind of fight of them kind of rolling out somewhere with Sam and the rest of the Helios workers getting control of the asteroid, keeping it for themselves, maybe inviting Danielle because they just like her, because she put out that olive branch for them and they like Danielle. But the rest of those guys, they won't even pay any attention to them. Maybe they'll have a bargaining chip for the first time in their lives. Tom Jr. Jackson, thank you so much for moderating, being a collaborator and good friend to the channels. Thank you so much, Tom. You rock. Join us next week for episode 9 recap. Oh my gosh, 2 more episodes now. What are we gonna do? For all mankind, and such a fun thing to think about. Yeah. Wouldn't it be funny if it was the Koreans, after all, who get it? And thank you. You are right, Scott. A lot of people are going to, yes, it's true. It is true. Guys, it's going to be next year. Yes, the Mirror episode, whatever you guys want to call it. It's going to be Dev and Ed are going to be fighting. And, maybe Alex will be the one to do the unthinkable. I don't know. but something to think about. Maybe Kelly will discover life. Oh my gosh, she's been trying to discover life for 15 years. For the love of God, let Kelly discover a bacteria or something. And where, Julian, where are those freaky robot-y creatures? Are they
They
on
were
the show?
they were in the camp with Kelly. Didn't you didn't see them?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, they were in the background. They were sitting there between when she was first kind of like standing there looking around, and there was people doing stuff behind her, and then you saw the edge of the crater. They were sitting there near a table or something that was being set up. One of them was kind of like in a crouch, and another one looked like it was sitting on its hind legs.
Oh, I've got to rewatch it then. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
We know what's going to happen. Maybe they will take over and claim the asteroid for themselves. Who knows?
I like it.
I don't know, Scott. I have no idea. As of right now, I don't know. I don't see anything in the system, and we're close to we are close to I have to look on my phone to see if I get any messages. Um okay. Well, not tonight. But that's pretty much it. So but guys, thank you so much for joining Julian and I to talk about For All Mankind. And guys, yes, the Martians are coming, Gary. Julian, where can people find you?
They can find me right here at the Burnettwork and Positive Fandom Network, and they can find me on Facebook, Julian Mushkin. They can find me, I'm MushJewel on YouTube, and I'm on Instagram. So there you go. That's where I be.
That's fantastic. Guys, as always, you can find me on Positive Fandom, on the Burnettwork, and on my new channel, Roman Empire Matters, where I discuss everything and anything inspired by the Roman Empire. As I think it was Gary who said it, if there's Romans in it, it's in. Yes. Uh, and guys, thank you so much for supporting the channel. So much fun talking about For All Mankind with you all. And thank you so much, Scott Bartholomew. It's such a pleasure to see you guys. Thank you for supporting the channel. And certainly, I really do appreciate the comments and contributing to the show. And guys, remember, no matter where you are in the galaxy, always remember to please be kind. Take care, everybody.
Cheers, everyone.